Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Heart of Hustling. I'm super excited to be here, but before we dive in, let's take a moment to understand who is a hustler. So, hustlers are people that don't take no for an answer. They go against the flow and they do unconventional things to get what they want, and they just do it. Like they do whatever it takes to get what they need. So we have here a great a panel of experts. For those who don't know me, I'm Tom Orbach. I'm the head of growth marketing at Wiz, which is currently one of the fastest growing startups in the world, which is great. And 2 years ago, I also built the viral post generator that went viral by itself and got acquired a few weeks after launch. And I'm also writing my thoughts and ideas on the newsletter marketingideas.com. But enough about me. Today is about our amazing panel. So we have 4 amazing speakers who embody the hustle mindset in everything they do. Let's do a round of intros. Tell me, please, your name, company, and a quick anecdote that captures your unconventional approach. Something extreme you did in the past. Yehiel, let's start with you.
Well, where to start from? So I'm for those of you who doesn't know me, I'm a third generation butcher. That's my trait. So imagine a third generation butcher going to a VC trying to solve a 3D problem for an e-commerce company, right? It took us 5 years to get our seed round, and during that phase, I had to sell my house just to get there and fund the team. So one small thing that we did that is actually crazy.
Amazing. Amihay?
Hi, my name is Amihay. I'm the CEO of WisePal. A few years back, I was a product manager in a startup, and I wanted to establish my own startup. But I want to find a real startup opportunity and not just an idea. Right, an opportunity, it's a word that has more components into it, like what's the market size, can you build a marketing machine that gets customers right to your door, and at the same time, also my wife just gave birth to our first son, and also we didn't have any money, so I didn't have too much room to play around. So I decided first to establish a business that from one side would generate revenue and from the other side would provide me enough time to research an opportunity as much as I want. And I established one business which kind of hit that goal. It was a business that scraped information online and I sold it to companies that helped them target better their online audiences. But after a while, there was some change in the online space that I understood I have to shut it down. And then I started a second business, which was a personal finance website that helped people reduce their payments on insurance. And through that, I got to the opportunity of the startup that we have today, which is WisePal, which helps Americans, reduce their monthly bills.
I love it. Daniel?
Hi, my name is Daniel. I'm the business manager at Google Cloud Israel. And fun fact about me is I'm an immigrant from Ukraine, a political science major, and somehow I work selling to Americans in Israel. And I moved here 6 years ago. I was one of the first sales hires at Verbit, which at the time was like a small seed round startup. Made it through like $300 million dollars of raising with them. And then after this, I was the head of sales at a company called Anecdotes, which raised like in total 55 million. And then I had a brief stint as a founder and eventually joined Google. And fun fact, another fun fact, 2 fun facts. So a fun fact is that this whole Ukrainian immigrant, I'm in the forest wearing bicycle, like sport clothing, whatever, selling a $400,000 deal to a guy in the forest in Virginia somehow, like in the middle of the night on Shabbat, and we closed $400,000 deal like this. So yeah, like you sometimes need to do random stuff to get shit done.
Well, let's tap into that later too. Sam?
Hi, I'm Sam. I moved to Israel 10 years ago, so a bit more than Daniel. I'm a growth consultant for startups, and previously I was at Lemonade for many years in the beginning, in the early days. And a fun fact is there was a time we wanted to grow the customers for the renter's insurance product, so we decided to give them condoms as a way to promote the product.
Okay, enough said. Wow, I love it. Amazing. Okay, so let's dive into hustling. I think maybe we can start with what is probably the first and most challenging problem that every startup encounters in its early days, which is validating the idea and finding product market fit. Amihay, you're known for your scrappy approach, for testing new concepts and trying to find those early signals that there's something here, like customers will want this idea. What are your thoughts about this? Like, can you walk us through a specific example that you ran to find product market fit?
Yeah, so I think one of the main reasons startups fail is that they don't get to product market fit, and they're like the usual advice that we get as entrepreneurs and also as early stage employees is to kind of get the customer in the loop and ask the customer questions. But I think even if you do that and you do market research, I think that there's some limitations to it because you are limited to the questions that you can think of for the customer, and also from the customer side, is limited to his past experience and not necessarily able to imagine how things would work in the future. There's a famous example about it that if you would ask in the 1800s people if they how would they want to improve their way from getting to point A to point B? So they would say, we want a faster horse and not a car. So I think maybe this is great to speak with your customer, but I think maybe adding to it to kind of get to the mindset of how can you provide the value to your customer now at day one? Like how do you start by providing your value to the customer? So for example, if your startup is about an AI for recruiting for HR departments, so instead of working in the garage developing for 1 year, and through that process probably the customers would tell you that they would use it, but eventually when you get to the point, not necessarily work as smooth. So I think in many cases it is possible to, for example, in this case, to start by selling to 5-10 companies, and if you're able to articulately get the message of what is your value, they will pay you from the beginning, and you can find solution to provide the value. So for example, instead of a bot that is talking with the candidate, you can hire someone who has 20 years experience of screening exactly the kind of candidates that they are looking for, and to be inside the market and to understand what are the barriers, what are the different considerations, and that would help you later on as you actually fulfilling this business function. It will help you to understand what you should automate in that process.
This is great, like showing your value right now, even before you have a product, because this is the best way to show that you can actually validate the problem. But building on that, there is a lot of debate around what constitutes real product market fit and when to start investing heavily in marketing and sales. Yehiel, in your experience, what are some of the misconceptions that founders and early employees have about finding PMF?
Yeah, it's always too early. Like rule of thumb, if you think that you have a product market fit, it's too early. Don't invest in marketing, don't invest in sales. It's like, it takes a lot of time to expand what you just said. It's not only about getting the marketing done right? So the sales team can actually get a qualified lead and then sell it. What about hiring those people, right? When you're getting like serious cash in the A round, it's like you need to spend it fast and you need to put it on something. And most startups will put it too fast on things that doesn't work because customer success is not ready yet, and you haven't proven yet that the customers that they're actually closing, you can actually expand, and then your NDR, your net dollar retention, sucks, and then you can't go to your B round. So these are all metrics, by the way, available online. If you're not an experienced entrepreneur, you can go and read it. But rule of thumb, it's always too early. If you're not super experienced, you're gonna spend a lot of money on sales and marketing too early. But try to really think about, did I close the full funnel can I hire those people fast to sell, right? To sell, to support. Because for us, it took us like an onboarding process. This is why it's like the growth really stalled. 6 to 9 months to onboard a salesperson because they needed to learn so much about 3D and it just wasn't scalable. So then you go back and you say, oh shit, do I need to change something in my product or in my workflow because that's not working because I can't scale, I can't onboard those, super, expensive salespeople because it's killing my metrics.
I have a follow-up question. So you mentioned support, customer success, even hiring salespeople. It takes time, and onboarding takes time, and until you see value, you spend a lot of time and money. In the age of AI, the trend right now, there are so many AI agents and bots that could do some of those roles that you mentioned, or at least in some of the capacity of those roles. Do you think that thinking about those AI agents or AI bots will allow you to take a different approach to validating your startup idea, like the lean startup method? Is it still relevant in this case or not?
So it's like I can answer like from a VC perspective and from a founder perspective because from a VC perspective, it's like they think, look at development, right? You ask any VC, they'll tell you in 5-10 years that problem is solved. So can I even build dev tools, right? So should I iterate really fast with those agents and as something that I'm not going to get funded in a year or two from now, right? So when I'm building my startup, these are the things that I have to think about because my product strategy and my sales strategy, my go-to-market has to be a perfect fit to my financial strategy. And I need to validate and I need to make sure really early that my seed investors and my A investors will actually be willing to put money in my idea. And that's not that hard to do because most associates will take your call, right? And from a founder perspective, you should try whatever the fuck works. Like whatever works, whatever workflow is more efficient, you should definitely try it. If those agents, and soon you'll get agents of agents, right? So that's where it's going. If that works for you and you can do it faster and more affordably, then you should definitely do it.
That's great advice. Do what works right now and give value right now, wherever you can. Okay, so let's talk about the second biggest problem of early stage startups, which is finding new customers or finding the first customers. Sam and Daniel, you both you have so much experience in early stage sales and marketing. What are some of the strategies that you've found to be most effective in getting your foot in the door with big enterprise clients or even B2C clients, convincing them to take part in your early unknown startup when you don't have no brand recognition, no budget, and no case studies to prove your value? Daniel, let's start with you.
This is a really good question. I think that from this side, you have to piggybacking on what you said is when do you join the company? Do you join the company when there's founder-led sales working somehow pretty well and you have some sort of pre-built, repeatable revenue and not just, friends of the founders who close these.
We schmooze them. That's why they close.
Yeah, you take the Yuval to get some pita and you close a $30,000 deal, but also they close a $30,000 deal with you. And that's how you build your first 30K ARR. You need to build something more than that. And to be honest, the answer, I was thinking about it, I think it's doing things that don't really scale, just like, Paul Graham says exactly this. In a way, you need to build your credibility. That's number one. That's the first thing that you have to do. You come to pitch to a big enterprise or to a big bank or whatever it is, and you don't have any credibility. You don't have case studies. You don't have anything. So how do you build credibility? You need to build credibility with your founder story. You need to bring the founders. So if you joined before founder-led sales or after a couple of clumsy ones, then you need to have the founder mindset. Then you need to basically build this credibility and make sure that you're not building a repeatable process. You're just closing deals. You're just starting. You're just building the foundation for the company. And then sort of the next thing that you should think about after building this credibility is how do you build some sort of the process that can stand out when you're competing. So, and this is a really big problem. We were just speaking with Tom about this. at some point when we emerged out of stealth, we raised 5 million. It was great. And our competitors emerged out of stealth with like 50 million raised from Sequoia. And we were like, okay, we need to think about something here. So, and then the next competitor emerged out of stealth with 100 million raised. And we were like, oh no, that's not good. So the thing is that all of them tried to build repeatable processes. So they hired all of these enterprise account executives in like North Virginia, trying to close deals and schmoozing like CISOs to go to dinners and whatnot. We needed to stand out. So seriously, what we were doing, we were like, I was bringing my cat to like Zoom calls and showing my cat to like the CISO of Snowflake or the CISO of Unity. And the CISO of Unity was like, wow, this is so good. And surprisingly, like this makes you stand out. So you need to like double down on standing out. You need to double down on making sure that you're not like them. And there's something so unique about you that this company might be worth exploring. And this should be immediately like sort of deprecated once you have a repeatable source of revenue, once you have product market fit. But before you have product market fit, like you're in a pickle. You can't really rely on a repeatable process. You can't hire 10 account executives just because you hit 1 million ARR. Okay, you hit 1 million ARR. Does it mean you hit product market fit? Nobody knows. So these first customers, you need to somehow stand out. You need to improve your SLA dramatically, which means that you can't reply after 1 day. You can't reply after 10 hours. You need to reply within 10 minutes. You need to be so good that no one can match this. And if you are really, really good, you are already standing out. And this is the way to sort of like build this up somehow.
I love it. But wait, I have a follow-up questions, maybe for the entire panel. So you talked about being unique, about standing out of the crowd. You brought your cat to every Zoom call with the CISO and like people that are not used to seeing sidekicks.
He was unpaid intern, the cat.
So I know, like, I've seen your faces in the crowd during his answer, and I know, like, okay, so you think I can be unique, I can be very special and stand out of the crowd, but how do I know, like, what's the level of uniqueness that's relevant for my target audience? Because if I'll be too crazy and too special, they will just ignore me and say, who is this guy? What does he want? I don't have time for this. This is not what I'm accustomed to with my role. But if you'll not be too unique, you'll be just like everyone else, and people with more money and companies with more money will just eat you up. So how do you settle this balance?
I think like we have like 4 opinions probably in this panel, if not 5.
You try, right? So have you ever, so one of our customers is Rolex. And during the negotiation process, I asked them to pay us with Rolexes. Now, these are French, Swiss guys, and the joke didn't came across too well. It's like, have you ever, you remember old computers has this, you did something and then you get like an error? Have you ever seen a face of someone with that error on it? It's like, that's what happened. And I never asked the customer to pay me with his merchandise anymore, So try, like, you know, you can't be afraid of failing, right? So you have to do it. You have to, right, fail fast still exists. So maybe you can, you know, debate if, you know, the lean startup movement is still relevant or not in the age of AI, but it's like, you have to fail. And these type of experimentation, the cat, if like the CISO would have, the fuck, it's like, okay, and then not respond to you anymore, you know that you did a mistake.
Oh no, it was statistically significant at some point. Also, same, I think, from our side, like the third customer we signed was like, I can't name the company because this story, you'll understand why. But it's like 250 people, really great startup here, backed by kind of the same investor that we had. So we got an intro to founders, it went down, we're speaking with the CISO, and then the CISO all of a sudden like calls me and he says, I'm gonna be a friar if I'll pay for this product. And 2 weeks later, he signed a 2-year deal. But the thing is that's like the conventional approach to this would be to like react like my founders. Like my founders were like, okay, schmuck, we're never going to talk to you ever again. The non-conventional approach, the standing out approach is like, wow, totally understand this. Now, listen, let's discuss it over dinner. Because like, yeah, I understand your concern about the product, but you already worked so hard for it. Keep it going. Keep building the pipeline. And this is one of the first things that, like, if you hire the salesperson and the salesperson joins the company early enough, like the salesperson has to understand, do I work on sourcing new pipeline, or do I work on closing the pipeline that sort of the founder already has, like all of these like meetings, interviews that you had when validating the idea, and do I work with this pipeline that the founder has? And typically, for the first sales hire, the answer is the pipeline that the founder has, like the interviews, like all these people that the founder spoke over the last like year while building the product.
And it's so important, right? So you want those people that discovered new land, right? You want Columbus. Yeah. These type of people you want, not even the first pilgrimage, right? That's how you say it. And then you have the city builders, right? Those that actually take you to scale. So you want those people that can venture out, they can sell air. And you want those people really early on, and that changes over time. So expect that change as well. That's very important.
Great point. Sam, you're one of the, I think, sharpest growth marketers I've ever met. Talking about like first customers and like doing crazy stuff when nobody knows you. Can you talk us through an example where you did something truly unconventional and it worked?
Sure. So I alluded to it before in the fun fact portion. Back in the early days of Lemonade, we wanted to tackle the market of college students. Like, it's a huge market. We weren't focused on it at all. We were always focused on like millennials and cities, and our competitors weren't there. And we didn't have the budget to do any brand awareness. And we also didn't believe in it at the time. Everything we did had to be measurable. Every dollar we invested, we needed to see the ROI on it and measure it. But in order to even get a college student to care about renter's insurance or to think about it or to consider buying it, like, you need to get their attention somehow. And I decided that we should do something in person, which we also never did before. Everything else was digital in terms of marketing and advertising. So we went through a lot of options about like, what can we give them that's going to make them interested? And like, what is insurance? Like, it protects you, it covers you. So what do they care about protecting? So there were a lot of ideas like phone covers and sunblock and coasters for their drinks. And ultimately we created these like door hangers that we hung on like 20,000 doors of college students that said, protect your junk, with a pink lemonade condom underneath. And then like you lift up the condom and there's a QR code to get a quote, and it said like, with Lemonade Renters Insurance. So that was the campaign, and basically we decided we needed to be creative, and obviously, how do you measure this? We tracked, like, we had a list of 20,000 addresses, so we could measure if somebody got a quote, if somebody bought a policy, we knew if they got a door hanger. We measured the level of brand searches, like we chose a few different schools, one in Arizona, one in California, one in Texas. We measured like before the campaign and after the campaign, how many people were searching for Lemonade in those areas, how many site visits we got. And yeah.
This is so good. Like, retrospectively, you can say, okay, it worked. We can see it through various brand awareness metrics. But just like we said before, you must fail to succeed, and you must like try and knowing that you might fail. So what was your thought process about the possible failure here? Like, what were the risks, and what would have you done in case of failure?
So there were a ton of risks. The first being that I was going to look like an idiot in my early days working there to the founder, which I really didn't want to happen. The other risk was that they would never let us do a campaign like this, like any out-of-the-box campaign that's not measurable by traditional standards again. There's also the risk of we had no control over like what the creative was going to look like. They wouldn't let us fly there to actually put the door hangers on ourselves, so we had to hire a vendor to do it. Then there was the insurance risk that, like, insurance is very risky in general. So if somebody buys a policy and something happens and we don't cover the accident for whatever reason, it's a huge risk. And I should also add that, like, Lemonade doesn't cover dorm rooms, only off-campus housing. So if we by accident, like, put a door hanger on a dorm room, and then somebody bought a policy and filed a claim, we would be in trouble. And as they told me at the time, like, Daniel will go to jail. So that was the other risk.
I love how your first part of the answer was not company level risk, it was not a brand level risk, it was a personal risk. You talked about what everyone else here is thinking in their hearts right now, which is, okay, I'm going to make a fool of myself, right? I might fail here, and then what will my founder think of me? What will my co-founders, if you're a founder? What will my other employees think? So I think like maybe I'll open it up for the rest of the panel, but do you have like an advice on thinking about this mental challenge of what will other things? What will the rest of the company think when I fail with this project?
I think like there's one trick to doing risky things is that in tandem, try to do something that's on the safer side. So you know that you have something to point to that's a success. For example, like at the same time of the college campaign, we had been working with one of our content partners, a really good one at the time, but we were never able to scale them. And we had really good ROI with them. And I tried for like a year to figure out how to change the business model with them so that we could be scalable. And that kind of happened in tandem with the college campaign launching. So I knew I would get a win somehow. But I also think like the mindset needs to be 90%, at least 90% of the growth things you try are going to fail. And it's okay as long as you're learning. And to be like upfront about the things that don't work, like, and to be proactive about it. And in terms of like not looking like an idiot to the founder, like proactively telling them what's going on, saying, okay, this didn't work, but this is why.
I think what I do in many cases, I think if I need to do something a bit wacky or I need to be more bold about it, I kind of think what the worst thing that could happen. So if we'll take your example, probably if you tell them about the Rolex, they won't just kick you out. Worst case scenario, they won't laugh. So it's not that risky. You can take it from there. And also, sometimes I like to, like, you can zoom out and think, okay, anyway, all the people that are going to interact with this probably forget about it in a year. And you can even zoom out even more and say, well, everyone eventually will going to die. So what does it matter?
I must personally agree with this so much. Like when you have a marketing specific project that fails, trust me, no one sees it and no one will remember it. Like I have it so much. Even when you just post something on social media, on LinkedIn, and post get no traction at all, it's because no one saw it. Like it's so obvious. Like no one saw it, so no one will even criticize you, and no one will remember it in the future. And when you do have successful posts, for example, then they just work. People see them. So remember, people mostly see your successes and ignore your failures. Daniel, you had something to add?
Yeah, I think on the sales side, I would like to add, especially earlier stage before you hit product market fit, the biggest risk you can take actually is like kind of ruining whatever works. So a lot of people are like, you know what? This team brings money, but they don't bring enough. Let's reallocate them to something else. Or you create a new department and you move everybody to this new department. Or you just change your ICP or whatever. Don't break what works. So that's the biggest risk you can take in sales. And if you don't do this, then it's all good. Like then you can keep experimenting as much as you want.
I love it. Yehiel, I'd love to hear your thoughts here as well about resilience, about not quitting when the rest of the world, including data and how you feel, the rest of the world tells you to quit.
You know, I really, what you just said. It's like, I really relate, because at the end, if you clean out all the mental aspects of what we're doing, which is hard, right? It's like, it's an uphill battle. And the odds are against you, like really, really against you. And, some of us are, I started really inexperienced in the tech world. It's like everything looked bad. But at the end, when you clean everything out and you allow yourself to really think on what's left, these are all freaking tasks, right? That's it. That's all that is left is tasks. So if you can get yourself into the mental stage where you understand that probably it's going to be okay, right? We're going to die somewhat. It's like, at the end, it's like they're all tasks. So why the fuck am I concerned about that? It's like, why do I do that to myself? And when you question yourself, and it's like positive thinking, like you just said, that really helps. It's like you go back and you say, it's like sababas. Then I don't know. They don't answer. Or it was the investor. I got like hundreds of no's like to get an investment. You can manage it like 5 freaking years. You don't care. It's like you said. So I have another task. I'll get there. You have to be really convinced that you can't get there, and you have to clean out all of those noises because they're just noises. And you have a task and you have to do it, and you go and you do it. That's it.
Such a powerful mindset. It's all about tasks, right? Okay, so let's go back to practical advice and hustling in the real world. We talked about validation, and we talked about getting first customers when you're unknown and there is no brand recognition or resources at all. But another problem that startups face is hiring the first employees. And I'd love to ask you all, like both as early employees and as founders, how do you tackle this challenge, like hiring an early team? Yehiel, as the founder of Hexa and as a hustler yourself, how do you tackle this challenge?
So I'm going to give you a tip. It's going to work every single time. It's going to work, right? If it doesn't work, then it's okay because it should have worked. Okay, so that's a mindset. So you first take them. So what people want, right? They want recognition. They want to be associated with something successful, and they don't want to take risk. So there are mechanisms to get those first hires, but there is a system that you should follow, right? So I lost my 2 founders, right, during that process. I lost my first one after 6 months, which was super hard because it was just raising our seed round. And then the second one, I lost him like 2 years after. And then my first 2 employees became my co-founders. They're now my co-founders. And I hired them as consultants. And that mechanism really works because it gives you both time to understand each other with very low risk. It's like 0.25% on the cap table for like 2 years, and you have a 6-month cliff. That's like standard. So you're taking 0 risk. And if you can market yourself and your solution is interesting, you will get some really interesting advisors. So now, here's the problem. If I go now and approach someone, like out of the blue, do you want to be it doesn't work as well. It might work, it's not going to work as well. So you need to think 3 to 6 months ahead who you're going to approach. You're going to connect to them on LinkedIn or something else, and you never ask something after you get the connection, after you get the call with them. You never ask anything. Maybe some advice, maybe build that connection over time. Try to build that. And when you execute it, try to execute as far away from the introduction point, right? Because it seems more organic. It doesn't seem like, I'm needy or something. I'm successful. You heard my story. It's interesting. It's going to be easier for you to attract. And then everything is aligned with both of your interests. They're now attracted. They want to be associated with something as successful. And you're taking super low risk on hiring someone. And then you can convert that consulting. It's easier to convert those consultants because you really know them and you know if there's a fit.
It also works vice versa, right? Because if you want to get hired...
But that's why it's worked, right? Because they're also not taking, sababa, אני אקבל קצת equity. I don't care, right? That's why it works.
Perfect. Amihay, I know you have an unconventional approach to this question of how to hire an early team. You did the stuff with the interns and the cohorts. Tell us a bit about that.
So I'll start with something a bit broader. I think many startups, when they go to raise, so they prepare a P&L for 1.5 years or 2 years. And then right there, when they get the funding, they increase their team. They hire people. And I think generally in startups, your spending should be in an opposite relation to the risks. So the more you lower the risks, then there's a better chance you'll have a stable business. Then there's a higher chance you'll get to the next funding round. And employees is one of the biggest, like for most startups, it's the biggest expense. And what we're doing at WisePal, so we hire a lot of freelancers and a lot of interns. When we need a business function to be that someone would own it and would take care of it. So the last thing that we do is hire an employee. We start with freelancers, and we take it very seriously. We interview them almost like we would interview employees, because we know that when you find someone who is highly talented and is very experienced, then you add his skill set into your startup, and from that moment on, you have it there, and it can help you. And even if it's a very expensive freelancer, it would still cost you way less than hiring an employee. And on the intern specifically, so right from the start, we hired interns because we didn't have enough money to hire employees. So in Israel, there's a project called Masa. I'm sure a lot of you know that, where newcomers, Olim Chadashim, they come to intern like yourself. They come to intern for 4 months. And
I came to the beach to learn.
he came to the beach. But some of them are extremely serious. And from my experience, the people I've met are highly intelligent, highly motivated. They come here because they want to get an experience. How is it to live here? How is it to work it? And especially and specifically in startups, they want to feel the startup vibe. And in our company, they do stuff like data analysis, programming, marketing, different stuff. And we set processes. What's the risk of that? The risk is that they would not provide the value and would waste the time of the team. So we set processes to be able to do that. We have intern that is now an employee, is interviewing the interns. In some cases, we hire a few interns together, and then we do the onboarding together to all of the interns and the training together. And eventually, when you work with someone for 4 months, you get a pretty good idea if they fit your company or not. So then some of them we hire, and that's been extremely valuable. And the ones that we cannot hire eventually, I would just share one practical tip about that. There's a non-profit in Israel called Gvaim. And in the beginning, and also now we do it, but we don't do it as good as them. We help them find a job, right? And we also were able, now they have someone local that can recommend them and help them get accepted to the next job. So this organization, Gvaim, they have a program where we pay for the program. It's not very expensive. And they're able to work with the interns on their CVs, explain them about cultural differences between their region state and Israel. They let them meet HR, a mentor that already work in whatever they're looking to do. And so.
I love how you both talked about the exact same thing, but from completely different perspectives. And the thing is, find a way to work with the people before you hire them and before you commit to something like serious. Okay, I love it. I'd love to open the floor for audience Q&A for some questions. We talked about validating your startup idea, finding the first customers, finding early employees, and also the mental challenges of how to deal with failures and what will people think and how to be more resilient. Do you have any other question for our group of hustlers here? Yes.
So you spoke a lot about growth ideas and failing fast and that 90% of what you do won't work, but I'm wondering how you come up with the 10 ideas where one might, if there's a process, if you go through certain frameworks to get those ideas, maybe prune a lot of the bad ones very, very early to fail even faster.
I love it. So I'll repeat the question. So in a world where most of the ideas will not work, how do you ideate the tactics and the campaigns that do work?
So I do a couple of things. The first thing I do is think about like my ideal customer and what are they doing? Like what's the moment that they realize that they need my product? What are they doing? Who are they talking to? What communities are they a part of? What are they reading? What are they watching? And that can kind of give you an idea of where to approach them. And it allows for a lot of creativity. And I also think like trying to get in the mindset of your customer and understanding that you're going to need to do a lot in order to make them give a shit about you. Recently, like for example, one of my clients wanted to target older adults, like people in their 60s and 70s. So I'm trying to think like someone who's 75 years old. And I decided I'm going to start watching The Golden Girls to get some inspiration, which really works. And by the way, it's a great show. But I also, in addition to like the crazy ideas that do work and being more creative, I think it's a balance of doing that and finding the customers who are high intent. So like that will also, you'll learn quickly, because if you are targeting people who are actively searching for your product, you're going to be able to know fast if you have a problem in your funnel, if you have a problem in the usability, if you have a problem in the retention. So it's about like doing both.
Okay.
Have you ever found yourself in an environment that wouldn't allow that creativity to explore, and how might you deal with that?
Have you ever found yourself in an environment that wouldn't allow you to be so creative, and how do you deal with that?
I'm not sure, probably. But I think like part of the trick is to be prepared for the no and come with a case as to why it should be a yes. So think about like the stakeholder who you're pitching to and what are they going to care about? Like if I'm pitching to the founder some crazy idea, they're going to want to know what's the ROI going to be. They're going to want to know how do we measure this? They're going to want to know how do we make sure the creative is perfect? So come with a solution for each. And I also think it's about building relationships with other people within the organization who are not on the growth or marketing team. So someone from the product team or a QA person is going to experience the product in a different way than you are as someone who's doing growth and marketing. And first of all, you'll learn a lot from them, but also those are going to be the people who will advocate for you to the founder. So when the founder keeps hearing the same message from different people in different departments in the company, it starts to sink in, being like, oh, maybe this is something that we should do. And the last thing I would say is always push like the story of how is this going to grow the business, and why is it not a big risk to the P&L? If like, what do we think the performance of this campaign is going to be? And if we don't hit it, we can make up for the lost revenue somewhere else.
Yeah, and I think that if you ever encounter such an environment, it's always the founder's fault, right? So the founders needs to cultivate that atmosphere where everybody feels comfortable failing, talking about failure. If you don't actively work to build that environment, people will be very reluctant to take those condom risks, right? Because it just doesn't make sense to take that risk. I wouldn't even offer it, right? So we have mechanisms to help employees to do those mistakes, right? I don't personally believe in celebrating failure. I think it's dumb, but I think that there is somewhere in between where we understand that we fail, we learn from it, and we understand that it's a part of the process. And as founders, and you're going to build amazing companies, you have to work to facilitate that. That's the only way to find that amazing thing that makes you that unicorn, right? Otherwise, you're just like anyone else.
And with that, we will conclude our session. Thank you so much, and toda rabba lekulam.